All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's agent development training. I really appreciate you all being here. I know we've been kind of bouncing around a little bit. Steve did a very, very nice job over the last couple of weeks working through the Agent Connect CRM. And I would say overall, the Agent Connect CRM is working really, really well for single agents. We have some headaches and some things we're working through for those of us that have sub agents or our sponsor agents. So if you're in that realm, I'm continuing to work on some updates and upgrades. I had a really nice call last week with our IT team and with Dan Garrison. So you can expect some additional enhancements there. One of the things that corporate has made a commitment to not do is roll out new technology or massive enhancements or changes to technology during Q3 and Q4 of each year, which those of us who have been here for any length of time can appreciate that. We don't like to make changes right before AEP and OEP. So I would say there's some really massive enhancements coming in Q1 of next year to a variety of our platforms. And I know myself and a number of agency sales leaders and sales leaders across the country are involved in a weekly call with our IT team where they're running things by us and thinking about the development and what the next phase needs to look like and what the flow needs to look like. So you're going to see some pretty massive upgrades to both the Agent Connect CRM and to Quote Connect, the quoting and enrollment platform, after we get through this next AEP, OEP. I would just put this out there right now that we are, I can't believe it, but beginning to prep for the annual enrollment, open enrollment season. I feel like this starts earlier and earlier every single year. Some of the carriers have actually come out now. I know United Healthcare and I think Aetna came out with their initial Medicare trainings that can be done before the AHIP certification actually launches for this year. So I think that's important to get those certifications done as quickly as you possibly can. We will let you know as soon as the AHIP launches. Usually that was in July, but I will say last year it seemed like it was delayed in I think it was early August before we actually could go in and do our AHIP last year. Health Markets does provide a discounted rate on that and a specific link that you want to use, to do your AHIP. So that will be coming out. Obviously, the FFM certification will go dark for a couple of weeks, and then we'll come back and we'll have the opportunity to do that certification as well. So we will have a lot of things that we need to do through the month of July and August. My hope and goal would be for all of us to be through all the certifications by the end of August, so that we're ready to focus on, engaging with our carrier partners and understanding product and really prepping, for whatever chaos and volatility is going to come during Q4. For those of you who operate in Indiana and in Ohio, I think you're all aware, but CareSource has announced that they are going to be exiting the market in Indiana and in Ohio for next year. I don't think that's catastrophic, but it is going to create some work for us. If you have not yet communicated with your CareSource clients, I think you should, because they have actually received letters in the mail notifying them. And so just in getting out ahead of that, I think it's important to communicate with them. Obviously, we can't do anything right now, as far as an ACA product is concerned. But I sent an email out to all of my clients just saying, we understand what's going on. We've been notified. We know you're getting letters. Don't panic. We will help you find another solution during the annual enrollment season or open enrollment period, this fall. I will say here in Indiana, what that probably means is that we're going from 3 ACA carriers down to 2 ACA carriers with Anthem and AM Better. It appears that they're staying in the market. So we'll kind of see how that falls out. I don't know if there will be any new entrants or any other exits at this point. CareSource is the only one that we're actually aware of, but I would say a communication to your CareSource clients would be very appropriate because they are getting notified by CareSource. Over the last couple of weeks, those letters have actually been going out. So just wanted to put a little context around what we've got coming, this summer and this fall. I know for here, my Northern Indiana sales teams and Derek's team, we've got one meeting here that we're doing in June, on June 18th, and then we've got our territory event, which I'm hopeful all of you will attend in person. That's on July 23rd. We're going to be asking for RSVPs on that because we want to make sure we got enough seating, and we're going to be having a lunch event afterwards. So we will be asking for RSVPs. So please just RSVP if you could and let us know. We'll be getting out some details on that the next week or so. Last but not least, a number of us will be attending our celebration event in Boca Raton. Um, and that is running from June 21st through June 25th. So myself and all of the leaders and a lot of our top agents and some wild cards will actually be traveling down to Boca Raton for that week. So I think that's about 12 days out. I just came off a TVP call where they were going over the itinerary. Looks like it's going to be an incredible event. I'm excited to host many of you down there. For those of you who have not yet attended a celebration event, I would tell you that's something to kind of wrap your head around. There's details on the contest page of the Resource Center that you can check out about what you need to do to qualify for those types of events. That is an annual event that we host typically in May or June, and it's incredible. I've traveled the world with this organization over the last 25 years. We've been to Hawaii, we've been to Cabo San Lucas, we were at the Amalfi Coast in Italy a couple of years ago, and then we've done a lot of really cool domestic-based trips as well. So check that out if you're a new agent, something to certainly shoot for. As a new agent, you actually have the ability to qualify as what's called a first-year achiever. And so it's important to understand that. If you go on the Resource Center under the celebration tabs, there's actually breakdowns there of exactly who qualifies to go each year, what those qualification requirements are. I would encourage you as part of your plan, you want to build towards getting to one of those events. Each year I do typically have a couple of wild cards, we call them, where I can invite somebody who's up and coming, who's showed some good promise, and has written some business, but may not have qualified on their own merit yet. Most of our top agents attended our first celebration as a wild card. I know my first one was in December of 2001. That dates me a little bit, but that was the first one. I was actually only about 3 months into the business, but I'd had some good success, and so I was invited to attend. And I will tell you, attending that event really changed the trajectory of my career and my business. Just seeing the larger scale of what health markets is and being able to cross-pollinate with top producers, from across the country and develop those relationships was something very special. So I haven't missed one since. And I know a lot of our top agents, once they go and qualify the first time, they don't ever want to not qualify for it again. So be sure and check that out. So I just wanted to give you those quick updates before we jumped into, really the core of our content for today. What I'm going to be doing over the next 2 weeks is I'm going to be going through a document. We talked about this a couple of months ago, but we actually have a finalized, refined version that is now available on the Resource Center, and it's called our New Agent Cookbook. We had a big hand in putting this together and developing this particular tool and even naming it. So I'm going to jump in here and share my screen. And I want to take you guys through a little bit of an overview of kind of what the catalyst was to build this particular tool. And then I'm going to take you into the tool and we're going to navigate it. We'll spend some time on it this week and then we'll wrap up next week. So I will tell you, I've kind of been on a little bit of a tour here over the last couple of weeks. I've done this presentation now for several different regional teams. We did it for our leaders meeting in Arizona. And so I just want to give you guys a little context and a little background as to where this had all kind of come from and how this had come about. So this whole project really began as an idea that Dan Garrison, who's our president, had about building a training manual specifically for sales leaders. We have about 100 sales leaders across the country. And the unfortunate reality is that when people come into our organization today, depending on who they get hitched to, sometimes that has an impact on, how quickly they get up and running. And obviously the infrastructure, the platform that each one of those sales leaders has might be different depending on where you're entering the organization across the country. And so we had about 12 of our top sales leaders who flew out to Dallas. This was last July, and spent 2 days there with Dan, with Dallas Richens, and with my business coach, Cliff Carthauser. And there were a lot of ideas that came out of that 2-day brainstorming session. Daniel Smith, who is a sales leader, top sales leader and agent in Lakeland, Florida. Renee Pena, who is a newer sales leader, but a very sharp young gal. She's in Texas, and myself. We all kind of took it upon ourselves to take a lot of these ideas and try to finalize this document and kind of get it across the finish line. It took a lot of work. We actually, over the last 8 months, have probably spent about 7 or 8 hours working on this and refining this and kind of honing what the final product is today. And I think really the catalyst for all this was we were coming at this from different angles. So Daniel Smith has really figured out how to leverage leads and live transfers to build up new agents and get them up and running quickly. He finished number three as a builder in the nation for last year. Renee down in Texas, she's really built a very successful team in a short amount of time, but her organizational skills and her attention to detail were really great. We were able to leverage some AI through some of her tools and things, and she was a top 10 builder in the nation for last year. And then obviously our team, anybody who's been affiliated with our team knows that we're really good at building that local practice and focusing on referrals and that local grassroots marketing. And so Dan, coming out of that meeting, him and I talked, and he said, "How can we take this lead focus that Daniel has, and then this local marketing referral focus that your team has, and kind of mesh them together, where we leverage leads in the beginning, but then help agents transition over to building a referral practice and local marketing." And you guys have heard me use this phrase a few times if you've listened to me at all over the last year, but Dan kind of coined this. The idea that live transfers are kind of the birch for the fire, and then the referrals and the local marketing are the oak for the long burn. And then how do you mesh those together, and how do you work this in a way that it really makes sense? I'd also say that this idea for a cookbook really came out of some of the Sandler sales training that we've done. And it's this idea that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of months of, are you a grill master or are you a baker when it comes to your business? Are you following a recipe or are you shooting from the hip? And I think any new agent in the business who's maybe struggling or just getting started should really look at their own practice and think about how they're approaching it. I'm a firm believer that a successful business is built on a plan and then executing that plan and then making tweaks and adjustments along the way. It's pretty basic stuff, but I see so many people screw this up in so many ways that I think it's worth reiterating. Our Sandler sales trainer, Eric Meyer, who many of you have been through the Sandler sales training over the years, he teaches this very simple concept that agents should be asking themselves a series of questions in a specific order as they get started in the business. And the first question is, do you have a cookbook or a business plan? Do you have something you've written out on paper that defines exactly how you're going to approach the business, where you're going to spend your time, how you're going to focus on the three revenue driving activities, which are scheduling appointments, running appointments, and marketing your business, the volume of leads that you're going to have coming in, the volume of outreaches that you're going to do, how many phone dials, how many appointments. I think you have to be really, really granular and articulate about what those numbers actually are. And you have to set a plan around those first and foremost. And then the second thing you've got to ask yourself is, are you executing that cookbook or business plan to design? I work with many, many agents over the last 20 years that I've been in leadership, and I commonly see agents write out a plan and then fail to execute that plan. And it's a number of things that derail us or take us sideways. I think it's really, really important, though, that once you've built that plan, you have to daily make sure that you're focusing on the critical measures of success, I call them. What are the most important things you need to be tracking, and then tracking that very, very diligently. And the third thing you've got to ask yourself is, are you talking to the right people? And then finally, are you saying the right things at the right times? I will tell you, so many agents get this inverted and upside down. So many agents focus so much more on the last two questions. Am I talking to the right people, and am I saying the right things at the right times, before they ever have a plan of action and before they're executing that plan of action to design. I'm going to pause for a moment here because Steve Cavajola is probably our senior Sandler trainer in the organization. He's done some great work with Eric and with a number of our teams. And through his Steve Cavajola University, or SCU, I know he's continuing to teach and train the tenets of the Sandler sales system. So, Cav, I just want to give you a moment and ask if you have anything to add to this or any thoughts about these questions and the specific order that they need to be asked in.
Not really. I mean, it really does start with, a lot of or have been taught what's called the Sandler success triangle, and it's basically behavior, attitude, techniques. And it all starts with your behavior, and that behavior is building a plan. How many walk-in drops am I going to do? How many phone dials? How many texts? How many points am I going to get each week if I'm using the PTS? And that really is the secret to getting this business up and running, because if you don't, it's the mundane little things you do every single day that are going to lead you to success. So if all you're doing is sitting around waiting for a lead to come in, your business is going to rise or fall by the leads. I mean, and so what this whole thing's about is, yes, I have to take in leads, I have to do live transfers, but what am I going to do to start building a local practice so I can eventually get off that? And unfortunately, most people don't have a plan to get off of being lead dependent. And so they just become lead dependent and and they're just in this ebb and flow of good, bad, and a lot of them just fizzle out because just if the lead business by itself is just you'll burn out on it, okay? Or you won't be able to afford it. Where if you will actually create a game plan where you go out and you start generating your own leads, you start getting referrals, you start getting people finding you on Google because you've got Google reviews. Now all of a sudden, those leads, you're not as dependent on it. And again, going into these questions here, am I talking to the right people? Am I saying the right things? You'll eventually get to the point where you can make those decisions when you have a lot of people to talk to. Right now, you go talk to anybody. You go see as many people as you can so you'll get better at the presentation and stuff. But again, if you don't have a cookbook or you don't have a behavioral plan that you're tracking, you're just spinning in the mud. And I've just seen so many good agents fail in this business. And again, we heard this from an old leader, Troy McQuigg, years ago, who said, most people who come into our opportunity can succeed, but the reason they won't is they won't do what's necessary. And this is what's necessary. You have got to. What kind of businesses out there do you think actually flourish without some sort of plan? How many successful businesses just wake up on Monday morning saying, I have no idea what I'm going to do today. Let's just see what happens. You got to make it happen. Success is 100% your responsibility. And starting with a cookbook is a way to catapult your career in a way where, again, you're not going to be so dependent on leads. You're going to get a lot of people starting to call you. And then you'll eventually get like most of the people in the South Bend office where they don't take leads at all. And they have a very, very robust business. So this is something I truly believe in. You got to do it.
So we do have some tools that I'll just point to. I'm not going to do training on them today, but we have our goals and game plan. We have one for tier one agents and one for tier two, tier three, and tier four agents. It's a little bit more robust. I'm not saying you have to use that, but it's just a template that you could use because I think that goals and game plan document really helps you ask yourself some of the key questions that you need to be asking to figure out how you're going to build a successful practice. I think your map of life is really important. Your map of life is simply what is your schedule? Like what are the hours that you're going to be involved in the business? Obviously, I'm a big believer that you plug in your personal life first, and then you wrap the business around your personal life, which is one of the beauties of working in this type of a business. But you've got to have it scheduled out. When is your phone work? When is your field work? I think each week and each day, our schedule needs to be defined by two types of activities, phone work and field work. And so you got to figure out what is that, what are those windows that I'm going to be involved in, working the phones and responding to people and making outbound phone dials. And when are the hours that I'm going to be spent out in the field, either running appointments or marketing my business or networking or those types of things. So I think that map of life really helps you to do that. And then, we have something we call the performance tracker spreadsheet. Many of you are familiar with it. Some of you haven't used it. Some of you use it every week right now. But it's simply an Excel spreadsheet that allows you to really build a plan by the numbers. How many people do you want to get your information to each week? How many leads do you want coming in through the three channels, which are coming in from health markets, personally developed leads, and referrals? How many phone dials do you want to make? How many appointments do you want to set? How many sales do you want to make on a weekly basis? And it gives you a platform to not only build that plan out, but then track yourself against it each week so that you're in a position at the end of the week to ask yourself, what were my goals for the week? Did I hit those goals? If not, why not? And then what am I going to do to tweak it for next week? So it can be a very systematic process. And I will tell you, Steve, myself, other leaders in our local organization here have spent a lot of time over the years building out some of these tools. Goals and game plan, map of life, your performance tracker spreadsheet are all tools that you can use as you see fit to kind of help you with some of this tracking and some of this planning. So I think that stuff's important. We'll do some additional training. I would say there's some videos on the YouTube channel that you can check out if you're not familiar with those particular documents and how we'd recommend that you use them. But it is your business. We're just trying to provide tools and resources so that you can build a plan and then execute that plan to design. And that's really the first step I think you got to think about if you're struggling or if you're brand new in the business. So the final version of this new agent cookbook really evolved into a guide that both sales leaders can use and new agents can use. And I would also say veteran agents can use. If you're stagnant in your business or if you're looking to take your business to the next level, I think spending some time inside of this new agent cookbook could be really, really helpful in helping you tweak some things. The idea was to provide this uniform overview of the different paths that an agent can take with practical guidance on how to execute each path. And hopefully this provides some, some uniformity across the organization. So when I had presented this to you guys a number of months ago, it was in a very raw, unedited, not compliant approved version. We're going to do a little deeper dive today because it is now available on the Learning Center inside of the Resource Center. And you guys can actually access this 24/7 through, let me get there. I'm gonna have to jump in here. It looks like I'm gonna have to read it all again. So give me just a moment here. I'll take you guys in and show you where it's at. But it's live and it's ready for use right now. Even veteran agents, I think there would be a benefit in working your way through it. It's something you can move through as quickly or as slowly as you see fit. But if you come up here and click on the Learning Center at the top of the Resource Center and come into our Learning Center, and then you click on Learning Center once you get there, this actually takes you into the platform where there's an enormous amount of training. And I will tell you, if you guys aren't spending, especially as newer agents or growing agents in the business, if you aren't spending some time inside of the Learning Center, there are certain tracks and modules in here that are assigned to you in the beginning as you get started. But then there's a lot of just ad hoc trainings and things that you can continue to immerse yourself in. So that's something to think about and remember. If you scroll down here to the bottom, though, there's a whole section here on the New Agent Cookbook. And so this is where you would start. And this New Agent Cookbook is actually built in a way that you can complete it right online. And I'm going to open this in a new window. Taking a moment to load. So you guys can either open it in a new window or you can work through it in the actual system here as well. There's some disclaimers and things, some table of contents you can actually work through as well. But I'm going to go into the interactive version and this is not loading as expected. Bear with me just a second. I'll try to troubleshoot here. Okay. I'm going to start at the top. And what we're going to do here over the next 30 minutes today, and then we'll spend next week kind of finalizing this, is I'm just going to work my way through this. I'm going to have some commentary on some of the different things that are embedded in here. And then you guys can come back to this and use it how and if you see fit. So we really started off with the two mission statements that Health Markets has, because we have one mission statement for our consumers, and that is that our mission is to help people make informed decisions about insurance products that can help protect their health and financial well-being. As you guys know, we represent over 200 different insurance carriers. We offer that personalized guidance and comparison shopping. We help them identify coverage options tailored to their individual needs and circumstances. And then we're helping them support informed decisions by presenting competitive pricing and coverage options. So that's kind of that consumer-facing mission. But we also have an agent-facing mission, which is to provide agents with a platform that is compelling, competitive, and contemporary in the industry. And there's obviously a lot of things that actually build into that. But we really felt as we kind of worked through and built this out that it was really important to have those mission statements at the top. You guys have heard me talk a little bit about my internal mission statement for my personal staff and organization. I did take some time over the last year to kind of work my way through building out our own mission statement. And that's something maybe you guys want to think about a little bit too. Your mission statement, your values, your core values, things like that are kind of important as a foundational piece, right? So this is where this all started, was with this flow chart, because I do think there are multiple ways that agents can come into the business and find success. And as you look at this flow chart, all of us agree that it's really important in the beginning to identify a couple of things. First of all, first thing that I want to know if I'm a leader is I want to know, what is your monthly income goal? We can break that down into a weekly goal then too. But this is not your high end goal. This is not what you're striving to be. This is your survival goal. I think right out of the gate, we've got to identify, what is that number that you need? Is that a few $1,000s a month? What is the exact number you need to survive? Because we've got to get you to survival mode before we can ever teach you how to thrive in the business, right? So that's got to be the core objective. And to me, that's one of the most important things you want to identify up front. Because as a leader in the organization, I can sit down with you then, and if I know what that number is, I can help you back into using this tool. Like, what do you need to be doing to hit that particular number? How many sales do you actually need to be making on a weekly basis? And then we can back in through the commissions and say, okay, what type of products do you need to be selling? How many appointments do you need to be running to have that volume of sales? What is the activity that you're going to need to build up to a number of leads coming in, or number of outbound outreaches you're doing, or number of phone dials you're doing to get to that particular number? So we can absolutely reverse engineer this if you're honest with us about what that number actually is. I think it's also important in the beginning to have a true launch date. And I'd probably be speaking to the guys in the room more than those of you out on the call right now. My goal after this classroom training is within 7 to 10 days of this training to have you in a position that you're ready to start working with the consumer and helping guide them. One thing that I think it's important to remember is that the consumers that we serve are not professional insurance buyers. So you have an opportunity to sit down to next to someone who probably knows very little about this. And just what you're going to learn in this classroom training and over the next couple of days is going to give you enough ammunition to sit down next to somebody and actually have an intelligent conversation. Ask them some questions, educate them a little bit. And when we're asking questions, I think about that as fact finding. Educate them a little bit on the industry and yourself and your organization, and teach them a little bit about how the ACA works if we're looking at individual health insurance. To me, that's our positioning statement. And then delivering a solution to them. And that solution is always anchored in a good health insurance product, whether it's health insurance or Medicare. But we have to have the conversation with them about the gaps and the holes that are inherent in every base medical package. I mean, when we think about the gaps and holes in these plans, number one, a lot of these plans have very high deductible and out-of-pocket maximums. Many of us know, I know I'm on a plan today. I have a $10,250 deductible per person with a maximum of two for my family. So if we have two family members that have a really bad year, I've got about just over 20 grand of potential risk. That's a gap and a hole. I'm either comfortable with that level of risk or I'm not, but I think we should be explaining that gap and hole and then recommending products that could fill that gap and hole through supplemental insurance, right? We also have very narrow networks on these ACA plans, and they're getting narrower. We moved more clients this last year to the most limited network plan in the state of Indiana, which was Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. But we did that because the average rate increases went up by 26% and subsidies reduced. So I tell my story a lot. I'm not in a position where I qualify for a government subsidy, but last year my health insurance was $1,700 a month for my family of five. It then moved, if I was going to stay on the same plan, it was going up to $2,400. Well, I moved to Anthem. I moved from Ambetter to Anthem to pull that premium back down to 1,800. Now, in doing that, I also accepted a much narrower network of doctors and hospitals and a higher deductible and out of pocket. But for me, the risk was worth the extra benefit of this premium savings that I was seeing. So I think we've got to, have those types of conversations and be in a position to do that, right out of the gate. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. So this launch date is really important, because to me, the launch date is when you're going to turn on your leads, when you're going to start executing your map of life and like doing what you said you're going to do and executing that plan. And hopefully 7 days from your launch date, you've got a lot of data to look back at and say, okay, what happened this week? What did I do? How did it work? What do I need to tweak for next week? I would encourage all of you, though. I think some of the agents on our team have one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat. You have to jump all in. You've got to do the work full time. I tell people, it's 40 to 50 hours a week when you're getting started. If you can allocate 40 to 50 hours a week to those three activities of scheduling appointments, running appointments, and marketing your business, you're going to be okay. But that launch date becomes really important. If you're someone who's been in the business for a little bit and you're struggling, I would encourage you to go back and kind of work back through this process if you didn't do this well the first time and set a new relaunch date. Maybe it's 2 weeks from now and you're going to get your ducks in a row to do that. That's okay. It's okay to relaunch your business. Many agents have had to do that over the years, and that's okay. And then the third piece in the setup is that we want to set your lead connect contribution. And we'll talk a little bit more about this to the guys in the room. We think you should start out at a 20% contribution up to $2,000 a month. The reason for this is because how this works is once you make a sale, the company is going to put Lead Connect money into your Lead Connect account for you to spend on leads and marketing and advertising and things like that. The company has a lead bonus. It's an additional 3.65% above and beyond your commissions that are dumped into your Lead Connect account as you make sales. You also have the ability to put in a certain amount of your advances or your commissions up to, for most of you, it's up to $2,000 a month is what you can put in. And you can pick any combination of numbers from a percentage to, a maximum contribution. But I think it's important to do because if you put in $2,000 or whatever amount you put in, the company is going to match you 50 cents on the dollar. And that's free money that the company is giving you to help you grow your business. We really feel, though, that for a new agent, especially those of you who are going to be focusing on live transfers and leads, we're going to help you fund that, but you need to help a little bit as well. And maximizing any company matching that you can is certainly going to give you more funds to be able to have the volume of leads that you need coming in. And we'll kind of talk through the details on that. But my recommendation would be start at 20% to 2,000. The combination of what we're going to contribute, what the company is going to give you, that amount that you're putting in, the fact that you're getting 50 cents on the dollar matching on that. And if you're a brand new agent, if you're in your first 6 months on the call, one other thing that's really important to understand is that when you purchase leads through the Health Markets lead platform, you also get a 50% lead rebate every week it comes back to you on the leads that you purchase. So you're basically getting a 50% discount for the first 6 months. So the combination of all of that allows you to have the volume of leads you need coming in those first 6 months to be able to really get a good jump start and have kind of a springboard as far as your career is concerned. So those are three things: the income goal, whatever that launch date is, and then this lead connect contribution. Those are three things that I think everybody agrees really need to be set in stone right out of the gate. And then when you start thinking about choosing your path, there are really three paths I think that you can travel down. And it's okay to choose your path here, but there are going to be downstream impacts to whatever path you choose, right? So the lead focused path, this is more the path that Daniel Smith and his team in Florida has subscribed to. This path is heavy, heavy, heavy phone work. You can see on there 90% phone work, maybe 10% field work. So this is somebody who's sitting behind a desk and taking leads as fast as they can, making outbound phone dials and selling over the phone in most situations. So I'm not saying that doesn't mean you can't sell in person or a client couldn't come in to meet with you. That'd be perfectly fine. But the majority of it's done over the phone. To be successful in this path, the numbers bear it out that you've got to be taking between 40 and 60 leads per week. I would challenge a few of you on the call because I think a few of you on the call think you're on the lead path, but you're only taking 10 or 12 or 15 leads a week. It's not enough volume to get there. So if you're on that lead path today and you're not seeing the success that you want, you got to figure out, how do I ramp up the volume of leads that are actually coming in? Obviously, we are somewhat limited when you're on the lead path by what's generated, what leads are even available, right? Right now, nationwide, we're generating between 21 and 22,000 live transfers per month. But all of those may not be in the county where you live in, right? So some ways you can expand a little bit is expanding your geography, expanding the hours and times a day that you're willing to take leads. I think if you're on this lead focused path, my opinion is you probably need to be licensed in a minimum of 5 states. and we have 5 states that I think you should start with. My recommendation for those of us here in Indiana and Michigan would be obviously Indiana, Michigan. Um, I think Ohio is pretty easy to do business in because they're pretty similar to us. And then a lot of our agents also get licensed in Texas and Arizona. Couple of reasons why we recommend those particular states. Number one, all of those states are on the federal exchange. So on healthcare.gov, they all use healthcare.gov. So it's a similar process to quote and enroll people and to work with clients. As a quick side note, there are a number of states now, Illinois, Georgia, and a number of others that have set up their own state-based exchanges. Not saying you can't work in a state where it's a state-based exchange, but there's just an additional certification, an additional learning curve on how that state is running their state-based exchange that makes it a little bit more difficult to operate in those particular states. So that's why I try to say let's focus on 5 states that actually have the federal exchange that they're using. The other thing that I think about with this is that having Texas and Arizona, we know those are 2 states with large population densities and a lot of leads that are generated, and they're in a different time zone, which is kind of nice, especially if someone wanted to work later into the evening. You could start working leads in a different time zone, right? So that's another reason why we think about getting you licensed in some of those states. So I would start there. You can expand it out to as many states as you want. I would say in the beginning, though, you don't want to spend all your time because when you get licensed in a new state, then you also have to get appointed with all the carriers in that state, right? So it's a process and it takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. It's frustrating and cumbersome. So I think 5 states is the right number to start with. And if you're not there as a new agent, that's probably if you want to work leads where you should go. Um, we also do think that no matter what path you're on, that you've got to start to begin building that center of influence connection. So and also social media. Um, Social media, you can do that anywhere, anytime, no matter what path you're on. That's something I think you should be continuing to cultivate. We're talking about LinkedIn, we're talking about Facebook, maybe Instagram, and then probably most importantly, starting to build out your local presence online. Steve mentioned earlier the Google reviews. I had a client I sold last week, sold her Medicare, I sold her an Advantage Guard, a $50,000 cancer policy, and an accident policy. And the way she found me was she went online and she saw my 75 five-star reviews and read the comments and decided to call me and do business with me. So building out your Google reviews and building out that online presence is a really, really important part of this, no matter which path you travel down. Now, if you're on this lead focused path, you are going to be a little different time schedule. I will tell you the agents who are on this path right now, who are finding success, they are starting to take leads as early as 5 a.m. in the morning. People are calling in at that time and asking for help. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing outbound dialing at 5 a.m. in the morning, but taking inbound leads and inbound live transfers. A lot of our teams in Florida, there are people in the office at 5 a.m. rocking and rolling. That 5 to 11 time window seems to be pretty good for live transfers. And then later in the afternoon and evening seem pretty good. I will say, when we look at the quality of leads, live transfers in the middle of the day, they're not as great in the middle of the day as what they are earlier in the morning or later in the evening, right? And you can go, I mean, you can take leads up till midnight if you want. You don't have to stop at 10 o'clock if you're a night owl and you want to work. That's totally up to you how you want to build that. And then I think if you're on this lead path, you've also got to think about working some weekends because there's a lot of leads that flow on Fridays, or I'm sorry, Saturdays and Sundays, that are people who they've got a job during the week, and so they're starting to do, they're looking for insurance on the weekends, and so spending some weekend hours. So it's a little different type of schedule than some people prefer, but those are the key metrics. If you're on this path and this is where you think you want to build your business and how you want to jumpstart things, I would say live transfers are the quickest way to have conversations with people. I would also say live transfers are not the highest quality leads you're going to work. My opinion is highest quality leads you're going to work probably referrals and personally developed leads. Live transfers by nature are a little bit more transient type of consumer. I think about how I buy insurance or how I would buy insurance if I wasn't in the insurance business. I would be asking my friends and family and my financial planner and my CPA for referrals. I wouldn't be calling into an 800 number and being live transferred to a local agent. It's just not how I would do it. The people that would do that, though, I think they're probably folks who are maybe don't have that network of people around them. They don't have a financial planner. They may be a little bit lower income. There's a lot of sales and a lot of opportunities in that lead path, that lead focus path. But it is a little bit more transient type of a consumer. And we find that the sales that are made off of the live transfer leads are not as sticky a business as what it would be if they were referred to you or if they meet with you face to face or if you develop a relationship with them, right? So that's kind of that lead focus path. We'll go a little deeper dive on that, but I want to kind of get through the paths here. So the second path is the hybrid model. And this would be kind of a combination of the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Um, I think about a new agent coming into the business. I think a lot of you might start on this hybrid model. I mentioned this earlier in the class that this is the idea of you got a lot of lines in the water. The fisherman analogy just resonates with me because I love fishing. But this is where you're going to have a few less live transfers, and you're going to have a little bit less time on the phone, a little bit more time in the field. You still got to leverage those early AM hours, I think, to take the live transfers, but it's more of a mixed approach. And then the far right-hand side is more how many of us, and I say us, many of our top agents in our territory here in Indiana and Michigan have built our practice. It's this local marketing grassroots work where we're dialing back the number of live transfers, while we're ramping up things like our COI outreaches and our social media. We're spending less time on the phone and more time in the field. And really with a heavy focus, especially in the middle of the day, that 10 to 5, in getting out in the field and walking and talking and networking and engaging with small business owners and individuals who need our help, kind of wearing our jersey and leaving a trail. So I really feel like no matter what agent you're looking at across the country, they kind of fall somewhere on the spectrum. And it's not like exact 1, 2, and 3. I mean, there's hybrid options inside of all of this too. And so I just think for each of you, you got to figure out, how do I want to build my business? What am I trying to get to? I think in the beginning, you're starting on a hybrid or a lead focus path because you got to have some people to talk to. But hopefully with the idea that you're beginning to transition more and more to local marketing and grassroots. I will tell you, if you look across the top 20 agents in our territory, very few of them take leads anymore or work live transfers. Not saying none of them, but very few of them at a high volume. Most of them have transitioned towards that grassroots or local marketing. As you kind of think through the startup of your business, we talked a little bit about identifying, what that survival number is, what that monthly income goal is. And I think that can kind of be informed by calculating your expenses, setting up that minimum monthly income requirement, and then kind of understanding your compensation and how it will flow into that. And we can certainly help you with that process. And then as you're building towards that launch date or relaunch date, for those of you who may be struggling right now, I think there are some key things that you've got to have done. Number one, you want to make sure you understand your technology, that you've got that all set up. You want to have some practice appointments. Steve does a great job of teaching agents that you got to go practice on some people. So ask your friends and family if you can practice on them. You're not trying to sell them anything. Just sit down and have a conversation with somebody so you can kind of feel what the flow of that presentation actually looks like. When I think about the flow of the presentation, I really feel like there's 3 core fundamental pieces to a sales presentation in our world. There's your fact finding, there's your positioning statement, and then there's delivering the solution or making a recommendation. And it's really that basic. I also believe that the fact finding and the positioning statement can be flip-flopped depending on how you want to do it. Some agents say, I want to sit down and I want to gather a bunch of information right out of the gate. And then I want to pause to do some work and put some ideas together. And then when I re-engage with that consumer, I'm going to go through an education process. I'm going to tell them more about who I am and what I do. That's going to be my positioning statement. Then I'm going to move into delivering my solution. Other agents say, I want to start off with my positioning statement. I want to tell them who I am and what I do and what my capabilities are and educate them a little bit on the process. Take 3 to 10 minutes to kind of work my way through that positioning statement. Then I'll transition into the fact finding. Then I'll work towards delivering the solution. I think either one's okay. And we have agents that do it both ways, just a matter of what kind of feels right and flows right for you. But that's kind of where that practice really comes in. I think you need to send out your centers of influence letters. Again, I would challenge all of the newer agents on the call. If you have not yet sent out center of influence letters, I think you should. And I'll explain a little bit what that means. So COIs or centers of influence are people who know you, like you, and would like to see you be successful. I think you need to put a list together of those. It can come from your church directory, it could come from your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, people that you've worked with in the past, family members, whoever it is. But I think you need to compile a list. And then we have out on the marketing demand platform, we actually have a compliance approved template of a letter that you can send out to those individuals. If it was me starting right now, I would be hand addressing all of those envelopes and I would be sending them out with a couple of business cards and a couple of marketing pieces. Keep in mind that this whole COI process is not a process to try to go sell your friends and family insurance. It's more of a process to educate them on what you're doing and to ask for their referral. I don't try to sell them anything. I always felt like, I don't know, it just felt greasy to me to go try to sell all my friends and family whatever product I'm slinging. Um, but I do believe that reaching out to them and asking for their referral can be really, really impactful. Kevin McIntyre did this the best I've ever seen it done. He sent out 400 letters when he first launched his practice 6 years ago. Um, and you guys kind of know the rest. I mean, 6 years later, he's number 8 agent in the country and over a million FYCRs. And that really was one of the catalysts that I think really introduced his warm network to who he was and what he was doing. I would tell you, for those of you in the room today, I think you could send that letter out anytime in the next 30 days. That's one of the things we sent you via email to kind of start thinking about. And then I would resend that letter or a similar type of letter again, like in September, just as we're approaching the AEP, OEP season, letting people know, hey, it's that time of year. If you know anybody who's, losing coverage or needs to change their coverage or has questions about their coverage, remember, I'm here to help, right? I promise you that if you reach out to dozens or hundreds of people like that, there will be some people that will say, hey, Paul, I don't know anybody who needs your help except for myself. Can you help me? Now they're asking for your help. And that's a much different engagement and interaction than you asking them to try to sell them something, right? I never approached any of my friends and family as I got started in the business about selling them insurance. Today, I insure almost all of them, but it's because they came to me, right? And I wanted to create an environment where they're coming to me, not me chasing them. And I think that COI letter really allows you to do that and do that well. I'd also encourage you guys. We have a couple of Justin Wired in particular, who is hosting weekly live transfer training sessions. He does them on, I think it's Monday night and Tuesday mornings. Are you still sending that out, Sandra?
Yes.
To the agents? Okay. I want to make sure.
Tuesday night and Wednesday mornings.
Sorry, Justin. Thank
That's
you.
all right.
Sandra was correcting me in the room too. So, and Justin, you want to maybe just share with the team a little bit about what you're doing around that and how those are flowing?
Yeah, the live transfers are great right now. The the third party and the branded live transfers, I think Silas, I think you've said the national close rate on those are just under 20%. So it's a great opportunity. Like Silas said, there's problems with those. The business is not as sticky. It's low income. But as a new agent, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to talk to people and sharpen up your pitch and it also gives you a lot of great experience as far as all the different types of issues or problems that you'll run into. People, these live transfers tend to be puzzles, so you got to find these solutions for people. They've got health conditions, they don't qualify for an SEP. You got to look at the Med Mutual Protect and HPG. Maybe they do have an SEP, but they don't qualify for the tax credits because their household situation. There's so many different things that you'll experience that you're going to get a really quick education as a new agent as far as how to pivot from ACA to these other options like short-term or indemnity plans. And again, it just keeps you sharp by regularly, daily talking to people. Of course, like Silas said, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Don't sit there in front of your computer all day just taking leads. You got to get out and do that grassroots stuff as well.
Yeah, you're doing a great job on this. I appreciate your commitment to this. And I know you've had a lot more participation here in the last couple of weeks. And I think you had some really good sales last week from it, didn't you? From the live
Yeah,
stream?
yeah. I've seen Although I have increased, I sat in there's Christian up in, I think he's up in Detroit. He
Yep.
hosted a couple of live transfer um, trainings over the past couple of weeks, and I sat in on some of those, and it kind of recalibrated my thinking on the live transfers, which it blew my mind. They encourage new agents to take. Um, 200 live transfers a month, and I think that's basically what that document you were just showing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of live transfers. But as a new agent, you're getting that discount. What is the discount on the? It's you're not paying the full.
50, yeah, it's 50%. It's a 50% rebate. So you pay now, I will say, live transfers are like what, $36 a pop, I think now.
I think it's 40.
40 bucks a pop. And I will tell you that's a greatly discounted rate because if you were to go buy a live transfer on the open market, you're looking at $150 to $180 a lead. So Health Markets is subsidizing that down to 40. And then if you're a new agent in your first 6 months, you're getting a 50% rebate on that. Plus, you're buying that lead with monies that are contributed by the company into your Lead Connect account. So, the overall math shows that you're getting those at a fraction of the actual retail cost. But I know Christian is a very smart kid, and I think he's still a kid. He's a young guy, but he's figured out these are the numbers. I mean, and the numbers work. If you're taking 50 a week, you're going to sell a certain amount and you're going to make X amount of dollars. And he's got example after example of that. And so, yeah, that's kind of where those land.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's going to build your FYCRs. It's going to start generating that income. So it's a great way to start. But it's not somewhere you want to stay. It's not somewhere I want to stay.
Right. Well, thank you for continuing to do it. And I would encourage all of you, if you have not yet set in on Justin's calls, Sandra sends those out to everybody, I think, each week. Okay, we'll get it sent out today so you guys have it for what tonight? Is it tonight and tomorrow night or tonight and tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
correct. Four to
tonight and tomorrow
seven.
morning. And then Justin, if there's a lag in the calls or whatever, or there's not calls coming in, he'll also do some role playing, do back and forth with agents that are on the call. The only thing we'd ask is if you're on, please mute when he's taking a call, but you literally get to see him roll live. We're also going to expand this out a little bit. The Detroit team does a very good job of this, and so I've asked to get involved and have access to more of their trainings, their live trainings too. So as new agents in the room, or for those of you that are out there that haven't yet experienced, those training sessions, I'd encourage you dive into those. I really think you've got to spend at least 10 hours listening and watching and observing and asking questions so that you can, get proficient at that. And then last but not least, we have what's called our business setup checklist. So as you guys come out of this classroom training, we literally have a business setup checklist. It's just getting your ducks in a row to launch things. It's carrier appointments, getting your business cards ordered, working through and practicing your presentation, doing a mock presentation, just some things that we think you need to do. Again, if you guys are out there as a new agent and you've gone through training in the last few months, and you didn't totally wrap up that business setup checklist, I think you should go back to it and just make sure that all the boxes are checked and you've got everything done there, because that really gives you a good foundation to be able to launch everything really, really well. So as time goes on and as you can invest more, you can also continue to scale. I think you start off with that 20% lead contribution, but it should grow, based on conversion and your confidence and, making sure that you're, whoop, fatal error. That sounds terrible. The good news is we're at the top of the hour. So I'm going to stop sharing here. But I do think you've got to, start thinking about how can I ramp up my investment? As you move into tier 3 and tier 4 status, you do have the opportunity to contribute an enhanced amount into Lead Connect, and the company will match you. At a tier 3 level, I think they'll match you 50 cents on the dollar, up to your $3,000 contribution, their $1,500 contribution. And then for those of us that are tier 4, we have the ability to put up to $4,000 a month into that Lead Connect account and get up to $2,000 of company lead matching. I'm not telling you guys to do something I'm not doing. My lead contribution is set up 100% to 4,000 because I'm a tier 4 agent. The first $4,000 that I make every single month goes into Lead Connect because I want to get that $2,000 company matching, because that $2,000 company matching is completely tax-free money. That's $24,000 a year that Health Markets is willing to give me to help me build my practice completely tax-free. So So I know we're at the top of the hour. I know we've still got a long way to go through the new agent cookbook, but I wanted to take my time and really talk through some of these concepts that are in there and make sure that we're discussing it well. Cav, I'm going to ask you, is there anything that I missed or anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up today's conversation?
No, I just again, just my opinion. I think we should lean towards the hybrid first, and then eventually get to the grassroots. We don't have really hardly anybody on our team that does the just total leads 100% of the time. There are offices across the country that do that, but that's an expensive endeavor because, again, you've got to commit to a lot of leads that cost a lot of money, and leads are going to continue to be harder to get and get more expensive. And so, if you can actually get to the point where you can learn to create your own leads, you're not competing against anybody. They really don't cost as much as some of these other things do. And that's where you unlock your unlimited earning potential is when you get to the point where leads are coming in that you're not going and buying a fish. You know how to fish and you can create your own leads and you do not have to rely on anybody else. That's when this business gets really, really fun and very, very lucrative.
I never really realized how much you and Justin Wired actually look alike.
I know. He's my brother from another mother.
I always
Like
I
I
always
was
thought
sitting
it.
here looking at you. You guys have like similar glasses,
And,
obviously.
and and in the winter we are alike because that's when I grow my beard and I'm starting to rub off on him. He's starting to do some cool things, so it's all
Steve,
good.
Steve, you are a really good looking guy. I got to say that.
Thank you. Well, so are you.
I should have led with that. Two good looking dudes. So,
Yeah.
well, friends, are there any questions before we wrap up this morning's session? Error is overrated, right, Duke? You guys have any questions about anything? Sandra, was there anything in the chat box I needed? Okay. Air, I did see that. Air was overrated. So, well, we appreciate y'all being here today. We're going to jump off and we'll jump back in where we left off next week. And hopefully you guys can, and I'd encourage you, take some time to go through this on your own. And if you have questions, bring them to next week's session. And we'll do everything we can to help you be as successful as you can possibly be. So thank you all for being here. Take care, everybody. See ya.
Mr. Jesse.